What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Better Biomed. Folks, I just got a brand new device in. I wanted to share with you because it's got some features that I didn't know was possible on a meter like this. So let's go ahead and take a look at the DPM-2200. This is a fully featured Cadillac model of a pressure meter. We're going to check it out up close and personal. Coming up next, right here on Better Biomed.
I'm here to assist you with all your test equipment needs, from multimeters and test weights to patient simulators and x-ray analyzers. If you need guidance or you have any questions, please don't hesitate to write me at jbarber@bcgroupinternational.com.
All right, everyone, I just unboxed my DPM-2200. Brand new, still got all the original factory labels and everything on it, plus I got the screen protector. It's fantastic. It comes with a whole bunch of stuff. Guys, I have a transducer protector right here, two of them. These are a fluid-based barrier filter. That's because this guy can handle either fluid or it can handle air pressure in vacuum. So pressure vacuum, fluids, or gases. It can measure pressures on all those. And it's got a little bit of a party trick here. This guy can handle temperature. That's right. This is the Cadillac. It has a 1/4-inch phonograph port right here, and that means that with thermometers like this, it can handle temperature. So this is really an all-in-one type of piece of kit. I dig it, I really do. This is kind of what I've always wanted in a pressure meter. And I also have a USB to serial because it also has a mini DIN serial out, so you can do things like data capture. We're working on features like that with the BC Connect and my BC mobile app, so we can automatically capture data like that and create graphs and some other cool stuff. Maybe I've already said too much because we're working on it, but anyway, let's get back to DPM-2200. Here are my barrier filters. I'm not going to be using this on fluids today, so I'm going to put those off to the sides. Those would screw in line right here on pressure port 1 and 2. That's right. There's 2 pressure ports on this guy. They are not for the same value. We'll get into that, but temperature, let's go ahead and we're going to check that out. So I might as well get that out of the bag. Let's put him right here. Calibration certs. All BC items come with calibration certs. They are NIST traceable to the highest spec possible, and it has a user manual. And user manuals normally are not as specific, and in some other manufacturer's case, non-existent almost. But this one here actually goes into a lot of detail, and it tells you a lot. However, if you're looking for the specs, it handles a wide variety of different engineering units. And this one here, since it is the Cadillac, it also has min and max, which I think is extremely important for pressure because it's too often that pressure fluctuates, especially if you're dealing with something that's got a leak. So if you have a min and max, you capture that automatically, no intervention required. Let's go ahead and power it up. BC Group always puts in these battery lock plugs. So you'll find that in your little AC/DC adapter plug. And you have to remove that because that will engage the battery. So let's go ahead and place him over here. Now the device can power on off its own battery. The reason they do that is because these kind of devices here, they will sit there on their own battery, and that takes the case. And let's say you buy this and you don't use it right away, you go to power it up and it's completely dead. Well, that's one of the things that can happen. So they place the battery lock in there, that way the battery stays at its optimum charge for when you go to power it up. So when you boot it up, it's got this little splash screen here that shows you the different sensors, because you have pressure 1 and you have pressure 2 and then temperature. And I believe if we go through the screens, see the buttons right here in the middle, that will take you through the different screens. So pressure transducer 2 and temperature. Let's go ahead and plug that guy in right now. Let's let it do its thing. Notice how fast it acquired. That's one of the crazy things about this. It's very, very fast. Let's go ahead and go through the screens again. So on this screen here, you can see both pressure transducer 1 and pressure transducer 2, along with the temperature. So you have all the numerics right here on the same page. And this can be especially helpful if you're going to do differential pressure, because you can't do that if you have 2 different pressure sensors. Differential pressure is something that you'll do if you want to calculate things like flow. You will have some sort of obstruction and you can measure pressure on one side and not on the other. And based on the pressure difference and the calculation of the obstruction, whatever it may be, that gives you flow. So if you guys are ever wondering how flow meters work in a lot of anesthesia machines and stuff, that's how they work. But this machine allows you to do those calculations manually if you so choose. Here is that flash screen that we started out with. Pressure transducer 1, it goes up to 100 psi. That is line level pressure. And because these here are male lure locks, these ones here have locking pressure ports. So it's not just a barb where you push something on. Lure locks twist on and they lock on. So you can handle high pressures. This one does go up to 100 psi on pressure port 1. Pressure port 2 goes up to 10 psi. We have an analog output here, so if you want to chart out your analog data, that's up to you. Let's go back to pressure transducer number 1. Now, notice that this one here is currently in PSI, and notice the amount of digits behind the decimal point. And when we go to pressure number 2, the decimal moves over because it has higher resolution. Not as high of pressure, but higher resolution. So if you're doing millimeters of mercury and stuff on like what you'd see on general medical equipment, pressure transducer number 2 has got a higher resolution if you want to be very, very specific. Now, both of these measurements I've shown you guys are in PSI, but that is easy. Hit the select button and it goes to the units field and we can migrate through all the different ones. I have millimeters of mercury at 0 degrees centigrade and millimeters of mercury at 20 degrees centigrade. Now, why do you think they have two different temperatures? Well, mercury, it changes its density based on its temperature, and at 0 degrees centigrade, it's going to have a higher density, thus it's not going to reflect as accurate on the pressure. And if I go to millimeters of mercury at 20 degrees centigrade, it's going to have a much lower density, and it's going to reflect much looser on your pressure. So since this is a precision instrument, it's got both of those ranges because in engineering terms, the temperature differential of mercury is going to matter, and these guys have made allotments for that. Notice down here at the bottom it says min and max, and we can go through those. And let's say you want to zero the pressure meter. When you boot this thing up, it zeroes itself automatically to atmospheric pressure. However, if you want to reset it yet again, you press the up and down, and it zeroes itself digitally. No more tweaking little pots. Those days are gone. And the days of sitting there and monitoring the pressure and watching it creep up, because analog pots, they do allow for creep, especially if they get older. Digital ones, it's much more accurate. Okay, so we have PSI, millimeters of mercury. We have bar, millibar, kilopascals. We got kilograms per centimeter squared. I have inches of mercury, again, 60 degrees Fahrenheit. We have inches of water at 20 degrees centigrade, inches of water at 4 degrees centigrade. Of course, water's density also changes according to temperature. We have centimeters of H2O at 20 degrees. We have inches of mercury at 20, inches of mercury at 0, millimeters of mercury 20, millimeters of mercury at 0, and back to PSI. That's a lot of engineering units. But that way there, you don't have to do the calculations yourself. Just set it and forget it, right? Now the cool thing is you can set one pressure transducer to measure in one unit, and then you can set the other transducer to measure in a separate unit, which is really cool because when you go down to this screen here, you can have two different units reflecting on the exact same page, which is really unusual because usually if you move your meter to millimeters of mercury, all the measurements are going to be in millimeters of mercury, independent measurement units. Very cool. Temperature on the same screen, super nice. I also dig this right here. Notice that when I change my units, it changes the cap. So instead of just saying like 100 psi, notice how pressure number 1 moved to 5,171 millimeters of mercury. Meanwhile, pressure 2 is still sitting at 10 psi. Because I changed the engineering unit. Very cool that it's a live screen that changes like that. So folks, the temperature on this guy, it goes up to 100 degrees C. Minimum is going to be 0 degrees centigrade. And I do believe that you can get different probes so you can change those numbers yourself. However, this is a very durable temperature probe here, and 100 degrees C is plenty for most of the things that we are doing, with a minimum of 0, because water freezes at 0 anyway, right? So there you have it, guys. That is the DPM-2200 by BC Biomedical. Cool little meter. It's got a stand. Hang it on a wall or something, you can do so. Pretty easy. And I believe that this guy, this guy runs off 9-volt batteries. So the devices that have internal lithium cells, when those ones run out of juice, you're done. With a 9-volt battery cell here, you have the option of staying up and staying going if you run the batteries low. You can just pop in another 9-volt and you're off to the races again. So folks, there we have it, DPM-2200. Fantastic little meter. I'm very excited. I'm going to be putting it to some use, maybe in some vacuum trials and whatnot, to measure how much vacuum I really have, because this device, not only does it do pressure, it does vacuum. It does pressure of water and gas. How cool. All right, guys, thanks for watching.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below with what you'd like to see in future videos.